सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पाद शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं। शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। So yesterday we were seeing the meaning of Upanishad. So what does it mean? Upanishad consists of three terms. What are they? Upa, Ni and Sat. It is not Shat, it is Sat. Due to some grammatical rules, the Sat becomes Shat. So therefore it becomes Upanishad. So yesterday we were seeing what is the qualification of an Upanishadic student. The qualification is he must have intelligently lived life. He must have observed life. He must have intelligently gone through all experiences in life, and thus he must have become a matured seeker of truth. So what is his experience? What are his observations in life? He observes that true happiness, permanent happiness, infinite happiness, peace, bliss, joy, fulfillment cannot be attained from the world. So he has seen the limitations of worldly knowledge. He has seen the limitations of worldly wealth. He has seen the limitations of worldly pleasures. He has seen the limitations of worldly existence. He has seen the limitations of worldly relationship. He has seen the limitations of worldly love. He has seen the limitations of worldly fame. He has seen the limitations of worldly actions. And he has seen the limitations of worldly results. In short, he has seen the limitations of everything that is worldly. So naturally, now he is seeking happiness. He has found one thing, that the world doesn't have happiness. At the same time, he observes some people, great saints and sages, Mahatmas, who are reveling in that bliss. So naturally, he gets attracted to such Mahatmas, who are indeed rare few. He gets attracted, and thus he approaches them, seeking peace of mind. So that approaching the Mahatmas for that knowledge which they possess is indicated by Upa. In our scriptures, the world is compared with so many similes. Sometimes world is considered as a wild forest. And just imagine the condition of a person who is lost in a wild forest, extending miles and miles. What will be his condition? He'll be eagerly waiting for some guidance to come out, isn't it? Wild forest infested with all kinds of wild animals, tired, hungry, full of fear. Just imagine the condition of a person. Our scriptures represent this world, sometimes compare this world with that kind of forest. Sometimes this world is compared with desert. So what happens to a person who is lost in a desert? He is thirsty, and then he sees water far away, and then he chases that water. But alas, what kind of water is it? Illusory water of mirage, isn't it? Marichika. And then he chases that water and ultimately gets tired, exhausted, hungry. So what is that which he will crave for in desert? A shady place, water, etc. Isn't it? A person who suffers in this world is compared to that person who is lost in a desert. Sometimes this world is compared with a house on fire. So what is the only thought which a person will have inside that house? How to come out, isn't it? Sometimes this world is compared with a huge python which has devoured a human being. Kala vyala mukha grasta. This is the way Bhagavatam says. Kala vyala, the snake of time. And each and every one of us, we are inside that mouth, slowly getting digested in the belly of that python. So what is the only desire which that person will have? How to somehow come out, isn't it? Sometimes this world is compared with a deep well, dry well. And the person falls down into that well. Now he is somehow trying to come out. This way, our scriptures have defined this world in different ways. In short, only to point out how much suffering is present in this world. So the one who has intelligently lived life will see only the suffering. He is not interested in the superficial pleasures, but he is more interested, rather he is affected by the pains, the permanent pains of this world. What kind of pleasures this world offer? Agre amrutotpamam pariname visham eva. These are the kinds of pleasures offered by the world. What the seeker is seeing is not the amrita, superficial amrita. What the seeker is seeing is the visham, the poison. Thus, after having well ripened by the experiences of the world, after having becoming thoroughly matured, this person seeks the teacher of the ultimate truth. How does he meet the teacher? It is left to Mother Nature. It's a mysterious thing how a disciple comes across his teacher. It's a mysterious phenomena which God alone knows. But one thing is for sure, when the disciple is prepared, the Guru comes. We need not bother about it. Naturally, people ask, why did God create a world full of suffering? This is a normal question asked. He should have created a world full of conveniences, full of comforts. Why did God become so cruel? It is said God is very compassionate. If He is so compassionate, why did He create a world full of suffering? It's a natural question. Remember, this suffering in the world is a blessing in disguise. It is a suffering which will ultimately improve you, which will help you evolve, which will help your mind get purified. In fact, it is because of this suffering that we tend to seek the ultimate, the permanent. Otherwise, no one is bothered about the truth. No one is bothered about God. Everyone is busy in his family life, in his professional life. Who bothers about God? Yes, the deep philosophical questions of life bothers us only when there comes a shock in our life, isn't it? Somebody dies, and when that body is taken to the cremation ground, Ram Naam Satya Hai, when the chanting is going on, when that near and dear one dies, then comes all these questions. What is the purpose of life? Why am I here? Where am I supposed to go? Isn't it? What is the meaning of all this drama? The birth, death drama. These are the questions which automatically comes when we encounter shocks in life. Otherwise, no one is bothered. In Bhagavatam it is said, even Pandavas, after winning the kingdom, while ruling the kingdom, they also lost everything about the purpose of life, and they were so immersed in their worldly life. If even Pandavas had this plight, what to talk of ordinary people like us? So therefore, compassionate Lord, out of his infinite compassion, out of his eagerness to see that his children reaches him, therefore he gives measured doses of difficulties, problems, suffering to each and every one of us. Remember, it is a measured dose. What do you mean measured dose? That suffering which you can handle, that alone will be given to you. He is omniscient. He knows your capacity. According to your capacity, sufferings are given so that your attention turns within towards him. This has to be understood. So whenever disease comes, a true seeker, a true devotee, he never complains. Disease, that is also a blessing in disguise. Because whenever you are sick, what happens? You develop vairagya, dispassion. Isn't it? Lying down in the bed, unwell, all alone. Now you are left with yourself, free from all kinds of family problems. Now you think about life. You think about this impermanent structure called body. You think about death. And naturally, you become serious about life. You become serious about seeking the truth. So therefore, understand whatever suffering comes to our life, let us not complain, let us not grumble, let us see the hidden hand of God in all these sufferings. If you can see that hidden hand in God, you are a true devotee. What is the prayer of Kunti Mata? O Lord, give me more and more sufferings, because it is only when I suffer that I remember you. I hold on to you with the greatest tenacity. Whenever I am free from problems, Lord, I forget you. So therefore, I don't want to be comfortable forgetting you. Rather, let me be miserable remembering you. This is the kind of prayer. So therefore, let us understand this world is a perfectly designed world. When an omniscient Lord is taking care of this world, why should we be fear? There is no need. Bhayat asyagnistapati, bhayat tapati suryaha, bhayat indrascha vayuscha, mrityurdhavati panchamaha. Out of his fear, the sun rises. Out of his fear, the wind blows, the water flows. Everything that is happening in this cosmos, it is happening out of his fear, out of his command. When such a Lord is there to take care of all of us, where even a dust particle doesn't move here or there, when such a Lord is there to take care, why should we be fear? Isn't it? So this way we must face life. Right. So now the seeker, having approached the teacher, having gained the right knowledge from the teacher, what happens to him? When he gains the right knowledge about life, his understanding about life becomes very clear. He is very clear about the purpose of life, and thus he works hard to gain that ultimate purpose. And what is the ultimate purpose? There is only one purpose: to know who I am. And who am I? The Upanishad thunders, Sat, Chit, Anand, you are. You are eternal existence. You are absolute existence. You are not this mortal body. You are immortal. You are infinite bliss. You are infinity. This we must know as ourselves. At present, what is our understanding? At present, we think, I am this body. This decaying, dying, fleshy, filthy body I am. This is our understanding now. Guru says, this understanding is wrong. Amrutasya putraha. This is the way Upanishad calls the students of the Upanishad. Amrutasya putraha. O children of immortality. Uttishtata jagrata. Prapya varan nibodhata. Arise, awake to your divine nature. Prapya varan nibodhata. Approach the wise people, the noble ones, and know this truth as the very self in you. Know thyself. And once this seeker becomes clear about the goal of life, once he becomes clear about the path and the goal, what does he do next? He strives hard, works hard. That is indicated by the term ni, nischaya. With a firm resolve, he walks the path of truth. And what happens then? Naturally, because of his hard work, because of his sincerity, because of his determination, dedication, perseverance, he gains the ultimate truth. So Sat means destruction. What is destroyed? His wrong notion about himself is destroyed. His ignorance about himself is destroyed. His misapprehension is destroyed. His wrong understanding and evaluation of the world is destroyed. His vasanas are destroyed. And then what happens? Another meaning of Sat is Gati. Gati means goal. He reaches the ultimate truth. Gati also means movement. He moves towards the ultimate and becomes one with the ultimate. And there, this repeated birth-death cycle ends. Upa, Ni, Sat. So what is Upanishad? That knowledge, when approached with faith and when practiced with sincerity and determination, that knowledge which destroys all our ignorance and takes us to the ultimate truth, that knowledge is called Upanishad. This Upanishad is also called as Vedanta. Veda Anta. Both are same. Sometimes they call it Vedanta, sometimes they call it Upanishad. Veda Anta is Vedanta. Vedas can be divided broadly into two. Veda Purva, Veda Anta. The Upanishadic knowledge is called Vedanta. Then what is Veda Purva? 90% of the Vedas, they are Veda Purva. And what is the content of Veda Purva? It contains lot of rituals. It is meant for the immature seekers, rather beginners. So what is the content? The content is, do you have such and such desire in life? Then perform this ritual, chant this mantra, and you can fulfill that desire and be happy. This is the content of Veda Purva Bhaga. So what does it contain? It contains elaborate details of how a ritual has to be performed, what mantras have to be chanted for a particular desire, whatever the kind of desire you may have. I want to have a child. Yes, for that particular desire, there is a particular ritual, and that particular ritual has got some particular mantras. All those details are given. So what does Veda Purva contain? How to fulfill your desires and be happy. That is the content of Veda Purva. It is meant for whom? It is not meant for evolved seekers. It is meant for the beginners. And when he sees more and more results, naturally his faith in God, in truth, slowly becomes strong. That is the only purpose. It is meant for Artha Bhakta, Artharthi Bhakta. Meaning what? Devotees who are distressed. Devotees who have desires, lot of desires about the world. That portion of the Veda is meant for them. That is Veda Purva. Sometimes it is called as Karma Kanda portion. Both are same. But once the seeker becomes matured, the very same Vedas criticize the Veda Purva. What do they say? The world is not the source of your happiness, you yourself. The happiness is your very nature. Try to seek that happiness within you. Then you come into Veda Anta portion or the Upanishadic portion. Remember, it is meant for the evolved seekers who can understand the logic. Once a person is evolved, then he must study Vedanta. And the Vedantic portion will criticize the Veda Purva portion, saying that that is wrong. Fulfillment of desire, the happiness you gain, that is not permanent happiness. That is misery postponed. That's all. So this way, Vedas have given instructions for different levels of seekers. Now we are discussing Upanishad, which is meant for the highest class, for the most evolved. Right. Now we will come to Amrita Bindu Upanishad. Well, this Upanishad is from Atharva Vedas. We have 4 Vedas. What are they? Rig, Yajur, Sama, Atharva. Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda, Atharva Veda. Now this Veda is from Atharva Veda. Now there are 5 Bindu Upanishads in Atharva Veda. The list is given in this book. Nada Bindu Upanishad, Brahma Bindu Upanishad, Tejo Bindu Upanishad, Dhyana Bindu Upanishad and Amrita Bindu Upanishad. So among these 5 Upanishad, Amrita Bindu Upanishad is the most famous. And this Upanishad is called as a minor Upanishad. Among Upanishads also we have 2 branches. One is the major, the other is the minor. Now what do you mean major and minor? All those Upanishads where Bhagwan Shankaracharya has written commentaries, those Upanishads are called major Upanishads. Which are those Upanishads? So there is a verse. Ishakena khata prashna munda mandukya tittiri aitareyam cha chandogyam Brihadaranyakam Dasha. There are 10 Upanishads where Bhagwan Shankaracharya has written commentary. Which are they? Ishavasya Upanishad, Kenopanishad, Kathopanishad, Prashnopanishad, Mundakopanishad, Mandokya Upanishad, Taittiriya Upanishad, Aitareya Upanishad, Chandogya Upanishad and Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. So these 10 Upanishads are considered as major Upanishads. All the other Upanishads, I think there are around 108 Upanishads, the available ones. All the other Upanishads are considered as minor. Now why did Bhagwan Shankaracharya write commentaries on only these 10? One of the reasons they give is because there is another text called Brahma Sutra, composed by Bhagwan Vedavyasa. In that Brahma Sutra, many of the quotations are from these 10 Upanishads. Therefore, they say Bhagwan Shankaracharya has written commentaries on these 10. But when we hear minor, we think that it is insignificant Upanishad. Let us not devalue this Upanishad by calling it minor. Let us understand all Upanishads speak of the same reality. So therefore, all Upanishads are equally important. Value-wise, there is nothing called minor and major. All Upanishads are important. Content-wise. So therefore, Amrita Bindu Upanishad is also considered to be a very, very valuable Upanishad as far as a seeker is concerned. Now let us see what does it mean. Amrita Bindu Upanishad. We have seen Upanishad. Now let us see the meaning of Amrita Bindu. Bindu means drop. Amrita, immortality. So what does it mean? Number 1, the teaching present in this Upanishad, they are immortal. The teachings are immortal. Means what? In Satyuga also, this Upanishad teaching was valid. Today in Kali Yuga also, this teaching is equally valid. In the future, after billions of years also, this teaching will be valid. Unlike the knowledge in the field of science, where every time the old one becomes obsolete and something new comes up, and there is no guarantee that this will remain. The next day it may change, isn't it? Nowadays, who uses black and white TV? No one. Then came this color TV with CRT, cathode ray tube. The back is so huge. And now what has come? Flat TVs have come. And now we don't know what all kinds of technology is going to come in the future. HD and 3D and whatnot. Technology, as far as that is concerned, the knowledge keeps updating because there is a possibility of something better. But as far as this knowledge is concerned, this is the best. So therefore, there is no possibility of improving this knowledge. You can at the most comment upon this knowledge, but there is no possibility of improvement. This is the best. This is ultimately divine. Therefore, this is Amrita, immortal. At all periods of time, this knowledge will be valuable, most precious. In those times also, in the period of Rama, Krishna, also they practice the same knowledge. Even today also, the saints and sages practice the same knowledge. No updation is possible. Another meaning of this Amrita is, this Upanishad teaches what is the main theme. Immortality is the main theme of the Upanishad. Therefore it is Amrita Bindu Upanishad. Also, whoever practices this Upanishad, follows this Upanishads, what happens to that person? He becomes immortal. So therefore, Amrita Bindu Upanishad. So the teaching is about immortality. The teaching is immortal, and the one who learns becomes immortal. Therefore, Amrita Bindu Upanishad. Right. I think this much is enough. Now, who is the teacher and who is the student? We don't know. In some of the Upanishads, we know the teacher, the name is given. The teacher's name and the student's name. Sometimes in some of the Upanishads it is given. As far as this Upanishad is concerned, we don't know who the teacher is. We don't know who the student is. Only the teachings are available. Now, let us enter into the Upanishad. So before entering into the Upanishad, we will have to chant Shanti Mantra. So we will chant it in the Vedic style. What is Vedic style? There will be Udatta, Anudata and Swarita. The voice may go up and low. All those things you can hear. Om Bhadram Karnebhi Shrunuyama Devaha Bhadram Pashyemakshabhiryajatraha Sthirairangaistuštuvagam sastanubhihi Vyashema devahitam yadayuhu Swasti na indro vruddhashravaha Swasti nah pusha vishvavedaha Swasti nastarkshyo arishtanemihi Swasti no brihaspatir dadhatu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Right. It is called as Shanti Mantra. These are the mantras chanted just before beginning the teaching. So the teacher and the students, they chant this mantra together. It is called as invocation mantras. What is the purpose of these mantras? Number one, it is a mantra to prepare the mind before the teaching begins. This is our tradition. It's a Vedic tradition. Whenever you want to study something, what is the most important instrument to gain knowledge? Mind. Purer your mind, quieter your mind, more efficient you will be in grasping the knowledge. Simple. If you want to grasp something, if you want to understand something fully, what is to be done? Mind has to be prepared. It is not only for spiritual knowledge. Any knowledge, if you want to gain it, your mind has to be prepared. And this mantra is a means to prepare the mind. It is our own experience. When the mind is disturbed, you become inefficient in gathering knowledge. When the mind is calm, quiet, serene, pure, then you become efficient. Your efficiency level depends upon your state of mind. It's a fact. It is unfortunate that in modern times these mantras are kept aside. It is unfortunate that in modern times teaching directly begins without any kind of prayer. Directly they enter into the subject. These are all the precious mantras handed down by our ancestors. They have benefited, so they have given it to the next generation. It is our responsibility to preserve this tradition. So what is the purpose of Shanti Mantra? Point number 1, it is to prepare the mind. The mind has to be prepared. Especially when you are dealing with the highest knowledge, Paravidya, the Upanishadic knowledge. Here the knowledge is about God, the highest, the most subtlest. So if you want to gain the subtlest knowledge, your mind has to be elevated to those subtlest heights. Only a subtle mind can absorb subtle knowledge. So therefore, it is very, very important to prepare the mind. This is one reason why we chant this mantra. Reason number 2, these mantras are chanted to invoke the grace of the Lord. If at all we have to succeed in understanding this Upanishad, success depends upon 2 factors. What are they? Hard work plus God's grace. Number 1, I have to put forth effort. Number 2, there has to be the grace of Lord. Now we may ask, grace of God is always there. Grace and blessings of God and Guru is always there. Why should I invoke? So therefore the Mahatmas gives a beautiful example. It is something like sunlight. Sunlight is always there. It is illumining the entire world. But if my room should have that sunlight, what should I do? I should keep the windows open. I should keep the doors open, isn't it? Sunlight may be there everywhere, but suppose I keep the doors and windows closed, then the room will remain dark. Can I blame the sun? Oh sun, why don't you send your light inside? The sun will say, I have already sent it. That light is waiting outside. But there is one thing which you have to do. What is that? You have to open the windows. That I cannot do. So if the sunlight has to enter into your room, you don't have to create sunlight, it is already there. You don't have to create sun, it is already there. But there is one thing which you have to do. What is that? Allow the sunlight to enter into your room. And this is what is done by invoking these mantras. Blessings of the teachers, blessings of the Mahatmas, blessings of the Guru Parampara, blessings of the Lord, it is always there. But then are we receptive? This is the question. If you are sitting with a closed mind, a closed heart, then nothing will enter. So these mantras are chanted so that we become receptive to the Lord's blessing. This is second reason. Third reason, the Shanti mantra is chanted to remove all kinds of obstacles while studying. There are 3 types of obstacles which we will see later. So these mantras are chanted wherein we say, Bhagwan, let there be no obstacle while this transaction of knowledge is going on. This is reason number 3. Reason number 4, whenever a prayer is chanted, a conducive divine environment is created. A vibration is created. The teacher and the taught, they become tuned to the higher. So therefore, a conducive divine environment is necessary for the transaction of this knowledge. This knowledge can be transacted only in an atmosphere of love, in an atmosphere of peace, in an atmosphere of harmony. So in order to create that conducive environment, this mantra is chanted. So for all these reasons, Shanti mantra is chanted. Right, now we will see what is the meaning of this Shanti mantra. What is the first line? Om. It starts with Om. Om is a word, term used to indicate God. Om. More details about Om, this Upanishad itself will mention. At that time we will see the detailed meaning of Om. Om. Om means, O Lord, Bhadram karnebhi shrunuyama. O Lord, shrunuyama, may we hear. Shravanam, to listen. May we hear Bhadram, auspicious. O Lord, may we listen all that is auspicious. Karnebhi, by our ears. So what is the first prayer? The first prayer is about proper listening. O Lord, first of all, may we listen properly, and may we listen what is auspicious. Why this listening is given importance as the first itself? Because in Vedantic teaching, what is the most important thing? Shravanam. The teacher is giving knowledge, and that knowledge is a verbal knowledge which I am supposed to listen. Not merely hear. What is the difference between hearing and listening? When you hear without paying attention, then that is called hearing. And what is listening? Hearing with total attention is called listening. O Lord, may we listen what is auspicious. Now the question is, what is that which is auspicious? Anything that quietens the mind is auspicious. Anything that purifies the mind is auspicious. Anything that disturbs the mind is inauspicious. Now, if this is the definition of auspiciousness, what is the most auspicious thing? It is the name of the Lord. Pavitranam pavitram yo, mangalanam cha mangalam. This is the description of the Lord's name. The highest purifier. The most auspicious word, it is the name of the Lord. And that is why the mantra starts with Om. Every mantra starts with Om. Because that is the most auspicious thing. It is from that Lord the world has come. It is from that Lord I have come. Everyone has come. So therefore, the first thing should be remembering Him. O Lord, may we listen to everything what is auspicious. So anything that speaks about God is auspicious. Name of the God is auspicious. Any knowledge regarding God is auspicious. So therefore this entire Upanishadic teaching is auspicious. Every scripture is auspicious. Not only Hindu scriptures, Bible, Quran, everything. Any scripture which speaks about God is auspicious. So what is the prayer of the student and the teacher? May we listen to such scriptural teachings. May such teachings again and again fall into our ears. Meaning, may we get more and more satsang. Why is so much of importance given to listening? Listening is given so much of importance because whatever you listen, it has an effect upon the mind. What you listen and the state of the mind, it has a relationship. So if you want to keep the mind pure, one aspect is only listen what is pure, auspicious. Om Bhadram Karnebhi Shrunuyama Devaha. O gods. Devaha means O gods. So this is a prayer unto cosmic gods. They are called as Adhisthana Devatas. So just as a prime minister rules the country through various cabinet ministers, so all those ministers have gained the power from the prime minister. In the same way, the Supreme Lord runs this show, the world show, through so many devatas. Surya Devata is there, Chandra Devata is there, and each Devata has a particular department. Just like every minister has got a particular portfolio, they say. In the same way, each devata has a particular department. Which devata has which department, there is, in the scriptures it is mentioned. For example, Surya Devata, it's about the eyes. There's a text called Tattva Bodha. There it is mentioned, each indriyas, each sense organ, who is the adhisthana devata of that particular indriya. So when you pray to that devatas, that devata is able to bless you, make that particular sense organ strong, healthy. Those mantras are available. But understand, all these devatas have got power from whom? The Supreme Lord. There is only one God. He has assigned his portfolios to different gods. Now these mantras are addressing these devatas. So therefore you will find so many names of the devatas coming here. But understand, there is only one God. Just like the water tank. Water is only in the main water tank, but in different taps you get water, isn't it? That tap by itself doesn't have the capacity to give water. Where does the water come from? From the main source. In the same way, different devatas are there in Hinduism. Each devata has got a particular power. That power has come from the Supreme Lord. Right. Om Bhadram Karnebhihi Shrunuyama Devaha. What is the next one? Bhadram Pashyema Akshabhihi Yajatraha. O Yajatraha. Yajatra also means devatas. Yajatraha. Yajat, one who worship. Tra means to protect. The protectors of the worshippers, meaning devatas. Yajatraha. O Yajatraha. Bhadram Pashyema Akshabhihi. Akshabhihi, by our eyes. Bhadram Pashyema. May we see what is auspicious. O gods, may we see what is auspicious. Now what is the most auspicious thing in this world? It is the vision of God. Just like the most auspicious thing to hear is God, the most auspicious vision is vision of God. Bhadram Pashyema. What does it mean? Oh Lord, we are seeing this world. Whenever I see this world, may I only remember you. May this world remind me of you. This is the meaning. So when the sun rises, if you have trained your mind to see God, you will see the hidden hand of God in that. The ocean, when you see, you are reminded of God. But suppose you are a scientist, when you see the sun, what will you see? You will see a bundle of gases burning day and night. Now what kind of auspiciousness does it bring? Nothing. Does your heart filled with devotion, joy, etc.? No. Saints and sages, the way they look at the world, that is the most divine way, the best way. How you have trained your mind, that way you will see the world. So here, the seeker is praying, O Lord, whenever I look at this world, whatever I see, may I see your divine hand everywhere. May I see your leelas everywhere, Bhagavan's leelas. Swami Taponji Maharaj, who is our Guru of Swami Chinmayanji, Puja Gurudev. Swami Taponji Maharaj, whenever he used to see a piece of cloud floating, he used to go to Samadhi. He would see God only there. A bird chirping, his mind used to go into that state. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa also. Any natural phenomena, their mind would rise higher to those lofty divine heights. It all depends on how you have trained your mind. What you are seeing, you are not seeing with your eyes. You are seeing with your mind. What thoughts come to your mind when you see something? So here the prayer is, O Lord, may I be reminded you alone. Whatever I see in life. Bhadram Pashyema. In Bhagavatam it is said, those ears which does not listen to the glories of God, those ears are like snake holes. Those eyes which don't see the beautiful form of God, those eyes are equivalent to the eyes of the peacock feather. Means what? Absolutely useless. So many such descriptions are given in Bhagavatam. Right. Bhadram Pashyema. Now here, As far as the sense organ is concerned, these are the two important organs which the prayer includes. What are they? The ears and the eyes. Now that is important because most of our distraction comes from these two. These are the two major channels of distraction, ears and the eyes. 90% of the distraction is because of them. If you just take care of these two, then your mind will be very much controlled. A seeker has to be very, very careful with respect to these two, eyes and the ears. So therefore all the Mahatmas, they advise the seekers, don't expose yourself to things and beings and situations which will pollute your mind. And the maximum pollution happens by eyes and ears. You have to take care of these two. So therefore the prayer is addressed to these two sense organs. What are the others? Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasagandha. 5 sense organs are there. Eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin. 5. Among these, maximum distraction is of eyes and ears. There is one technique of relaxation. Yoga. Suppose you are very tired after a long journey, or maybe after watching a lot of TV, or maybe after browsing the internet, you are so tired. There is a technique of relaxation. You know what? Plug in your ears and just press your eyeballs with your palm. Something like this. Do this for 10-15 minutes, you will be refreshed. All the energy which flows out of these channels, the moment you block them, these energy, they revitalize you. They recharge you. Right? It refreshes you. You don't have to know anything about the mind. The most wonderful thing is, this technique is given in Vijnana Bhairava Tantra, one of our scriptures. Just block the main distractive channels and you will be fresh. So what is the way in which a seeker prevents all distraction? He never exposes himself to places which will cause distraction. In the beginning, every seeker has to be careful what he is listening. What are the programs he is listening in the TV, in the internet, whatever. What are the books he is reading? What are the programs he is watching? Beware. Because whatever you watch, it is going to create an impression in the mind. Good or bad. So in the initial stages of spiritual sadhana, a seeker has to pay a lot of attention to these things. A beginner in spirituality is like a plant, a small plant. So how will you protect the plant? By fencing it. Because otherwise some cow will come and eat it away. In the beginning it is necessary. As the plant grows and becomes a huge tree, then you don't need the fence. You can remove the fence. In the same way, once that spiritual strength becomes very powerful in you, then even in the most unconducive environments, your mind will not be polluted. Once you have gained the strength, then you can roam around freely. But in the beginning, it is necessary. A protection is necessary. So here, there is a common prayer. O Lord, may we listen whatever is auspicious, may we see whatever is auspicious, and thus may I keep the mind ever pure. Then what? Sthiraihi angaihi tushtuvam sastanobihi. Sthiraihi angaihi. O Lord, bless us with sthira anga. Anga means limbs. O Lord, bless us with good health. Many people have this wrong notion that spirituality means you must ignore your health. It is a foolish notion. Look at this. The prayer says, God bless me with good health, healthy limbs. When Bhagavad Gita also says it, you have to take care of your health. Otherwise spiritual sadhana becomes impossible, difficult. You must be healthy. Yuktahara viharasya, yukta cheshtasya karmasu, Yukta swapnavabodhasya yogo bhavati dukkhaha. You have to have a balanced, moderate life. While eating, be moderate. Sleeping, be moderate. Exercise, moderate. Everything you make moderate. Neither too less or too much. All the aspects have to be taken care. Live a balanced life. Buddha calls it middle path. You have to have good health. So here the prayer is, O Lord, bless us with good health. Because even to sit for 1 hour meditation, what I must do? I must have good health. Otherwise what happens? If my health is not good, the mind cannot rise towards the higher. Mind will be stuck in different pain parts of the body, isn't it? If the knee is paining, head is paining, back is paining, neck is paining, where will the mind be? It will be meditating upon pain rather than God. Your health should be such that at the seat of meditation, you should be able to forget your body. What is the sign of health? What is the sign that you have a healthy body? If you are able to forget your body, if you are not even aware that you are in a body, that is a sign of good health. Healthy mind, this is the same sign. If it's a disturbed mind, you are again and again made aware that you have a mind. If it is an unhealthy body, you are again and again reminded that you have a body, isn't it? So here the prayer is, have good health. Bhagavan, bless me with good health. A spiritual seeker must be healthy. So do yoga, do pranayama, do meditation, keep the body healthy. Sthire angehi. But what am I supposed to do with the body? O Lord, tushtuvam sastanubihi. May I worship you. May I do chant stotrams, praising you, glorifying you, worshipping you, serving you. Oh Lord, I want a healthy body, not to create problems for others, not to terrorize others, not to harm others. My purpose of having healthy body is to praise you, to glorify you, to serve you. Tanu bhihi. Tanu has got 2 meanings. Tanu means body also. Tanu means Vaidika Sukta also is called Tanu. The various stotrams, the praises of God is also called Tanu. So through these praises, O Lord, may we glorify you. Sthirehi angehi tushtuvam sastanovihi. Vyashema devahitam yadayuhu. Devahitam ayuhu tat vyashema. O Lord, whatever ayu, lifespan has been given to me by you, may we enjoy it, may we utilize it for the benefit of others. Bhagavan, I am not asking I should have a long lifespan. I am not asking that. But whatever lifespan I have, let me have a healthy body, healthy mind, and may I use it to serve others. May I use this instrument as your instrument. May I become an instrument in your hands. Note that here the seeker is not asking for long life. What is the seeker asking? He is asking for a productive lifespan. Because each and every one of us, we have come with different lifespans based on our prarabdha karma of the past. So here the seeker is not asking I should have a long lifespan, but whatever number of years I am going to live, O Lord, let me be an instrument in your hands. Now the question is, what is the meaning of being an instrument in the Lord's hands? What is the purpose for which God takes avatar? Dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. So what is the purpose? Dharma samsthapana, isn't it? So if I am living a life by which I am living a dharmic life and I am inspiring others to live a dharmic life, a righteous life, then I become an instrument in the hands of God, isn't it? When can I say that I am an instrument in the hands of God? When I live a dharmic life, a righteous life, and I inspire others to live such a life, then I become an instrument in the hands of God. O Lord, bless me that way. Puja Gurudev, there's a famous quote. What you have is His gift to you. What you do with what you have is your gift to Him. So, O Lord, may I maximize my gift unto you. May I live a divine life.
May you not be ashamed for having created me.
May you be proud for having created me. This way, may I spend my life ever glorifying you, ever serving you. Jagata Ishadhi Yukta Sevanam Ashtamurti Bhrit Deva Pujanam. What is the greatest worship of the Lord? Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi says, Jagata Ishadhi Yukta Sevanam. Jagata Sevanam. Serve the world. But with what understanding? That I am serving the Lord. When I serve the world, in whatever profession I may be, when I serve the world with the understanding that I am serving none other than God Himself in human form, when I serve the world like this, then Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi says that is the greatest worship of God. So in this way, may I spend my time. Then, Swastina Indro Vriddhashravaha. Now there is a prayer for blessings from different devatas. Swastinaha Indraha. May Indra bless us with auspiciousness. Naha means us. Don't take na as no. Swasti no Indra. Oh Indra, don't bless me. Not that. Here na means naha. Naha means to us. Indraha swasti astu. May he bless us. Who is Indra? He is the Lord of strength. He is the Adhishtana Devata of strength, Balam. So, O Lord, bless us with the mental and physical strength to walk this path. This is the meaning. Vriddhashravaha. This is the adjective of Indra. Who is Indra? He is Vriddhashrava, of high, what you call, great fame. Shravas means famous. The one who is very famous. Why is he famous? Because he is the Lord of all gods. Indra is the Lord. So the one who is very famous, O Indra, O Lord of strength, bless us with strength. Swastinah Pusha Vishwavedaha. Pusha, this is Pusha means the one who does Poshanam. Poshanam, nourishing. The one who nourishes us. Who is the one? Sun God. The entire world is nourished by the sun's energy. So one of the names of sun is Pushan. O Sun God, who is Vishwavedaha, all knower, omniscient. Everywhere upon this earth, the sun's rays reach. So therefore, another name of Sun God is all knower, omniscient. O Lord, bless us with nourishment. Bless us with knowledge. Swastinaha Tarkshaha Arishtanemihi. Tarkshaha. Who is this Tarksha? Garuda Devata is called Tarksha. The vehicle of Lord Vishnu. O Garuda Devata, bless us. Who is he? Arishtanemihi. The one with unobstructed movement. This is the meaning. Arishta means unobstructed. Nemi means movement. O Garudji, the one who with unobstructed movement, bless us. Now why his movement is unobstructed? Why Garuda Devata's movement is unobstructed? Because Sakshat Vishnu is seated on him. Who can obstruct him? It is something like President's car going. Who can obstruct President's car? The pilot cars go front and back. All the other roads are obstructed, but not the movement of the President, isn't it? In the same way, the Lord of the universe is Vishnu. Naturally, his vehicle has to have unobstructed movement. Another meaning is remover of obstacle. That is also there. Arishtanemi means the one who removes the obstacle. So, O Lord, may my path towards spirituality in the spiritual journey, may it be unobstructed. May there not be any obstacles. Okay. Swastinaha Brihaspatihi Dadhatu. May Brihaspati bless us with auspiciousness. Who is Brihaspati? Brihat means vak, speech, wisdom. So Brihaspati means Lord of speech, Lord of wisdom. And this blessing is very essential, isn't it? There is a communication between the teacher and the student. The student asks some questions and the teacher replies. So there is a speech involved. So if the student has to properly articulate his speech and present it in a way the teacher understands him, so he has to master his speech. Problems everyone has, but the way to present the problem, that is also important, in such a way that the other person understands. Many times what happens, this person is beating around the bush. Half an hour he has spoken, but the listener is not clear what he has spoken. So many times you say, come to the point. Isn't it? So here, the speech, we must be blessed with right speech, we must be blessed with wisdom. Brihaspati is also Guru of gods. May he bless us. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Now the question is, why 3 times? 1 Shanti is enough, no? 3 Shantis are used in order to indicate that there are 3 channels from where the obstacles can come. What are the 3 channels of obstacles? One is Adi Daivika, second is Adi Bhautika, third is Adhyatmika. Adi Daivika means problems coming, Adi Daivika Tapa means problems coming from the sources unknown, and therefore you have no control at all. Like for example, tsunami, you have no control. Earthquake, you have no control. Lightning, you have no control. Volcanoes, you have no control. So let there be Shanti. Let the obstacles, let there be no obstacles from the sources unknown, upon which we have no control. The second is Adi Bhautika. Adi Bhautika means from your immediate surroundings, upon which you have little control. Little bit of control is there, but not full. Immediate surrounding means what? Sound pollution, noise pollution, mosquito bite. And neighboring person, he keeps the volume of the TV very high. What meditation can you do? All the children are creating problem. They are all called Adi Bhautika Tapa. Let there be Shanti from that direction. And the third one is Adhyatmika, the most important. Adhyatmika Tapa means obstacles coming from within. And what is the greatest obstacle? No faith in this teaching. If you have no faith in the teaching, that is the greatest obstacle. I don't believe what the scriptures say. I don't believe in God. I don't believe in Vedas. Finished. Matter is over there. There are other kinds of tapa also, adhyatmika. Laziness, lack of attention. The attention span is limited. So when you continuously listen, you become inattentive. That is another tapa. Or sometimes some kind of physical disease because of which you are not able to concentrate. They all fall under Adhyatmika Tapa. O Lord, let there be Shanti from all this. O Lord, allow me to study. Allow me to gain this knowledge. So at least for some time, you give these problems later, not now. I don't say don't give any problems at all. That is not my prayer. Because I know whenever you give problems, it is for my good. My request is, while I am studying, while I am listening to the scriptures, may there be no problems of this kind. So that I may gain this knowledge. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So from the next class onwards, we will enter into this Upanishads. Tomorrow. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramayah Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukkha Bhag Bhaver Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrit Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om